a number of our youth and a couple of our adults went on a mission trip down to Pine Ridge, or actually over rather, to Pine Ridge, South Dakota. And I'm going to ask Tristan Davenport, our summer intern, to come up and share with us a bit about what happened this week.
Good morning. I just want to ask the youth that came and the adults that came just to kind of stand up and be recognized as I talk. So you can just come stand or sit up here. Oh, you guys can come up here too. Okay, so our mission trip was to go to Pine Ridge, South Dakota, which is a Native American Indian reservation on the far west side, very close to Nebraska. And so we actually left last week, and we spent the full week there and got back yesterday, and we went with another church in Belvedere called Christ Lutheran. So between the two of us, we kind of got together and we went on this trip, and we really didn't know what we were going to do going into it. The company Next Step had just told us to come, bring these tools, and kind of be ready to work and be ready for the heat. So when we got there, on the way there, we had stopped along the way. We went to the Corn Palace and then to Wall Drug, and on the way back to Mount Rushmore, which was really cool to see, but that really wasn't the point of our trip. So when we got there, Next Step kind of told us what we would be doing, and we would be broken up into 9 work crews, and we would go and kind of help these people of Pine Ridge in different areas to rebuild their house, different things that were needed in the community, and that sort of thing. So Next Step is like the company, as I said before, where they would get groups together and they outreach to the people of Pine Ridge and in different areas of the country with things they need and kind of help build their lives back together in their houses, because the unemployment rate in South Dakota and Pine Ridge is at 70%, which is the largest in the country. So they're in dire need of help. And our work site was a man named Travis, and we were help building his house again. And he has been in the program for 2 years now. And as of last summer, when they finished, he didn't even have a floor to live in. So he told us we really need to get this done, and it's really important for us to stay focused and get his house in a livable condition. Luckily, by the time we got there, it was already pretty much well done on the outside, and he could definitely live in it through the winter this year. So what we were doing mostly was sanding, mudding, drywalling, and putting insulation into his house. And that was what we were doing for 4 days, from Monday to Thursday, from about 8:30 to 3:30 every day with a lunch break. And then so as we were doing that, Travis was talking to us and explaining his life and all these stories, and his life is really just incredible, and how he goes about his life every day and lives his life in a very religious, Christ-filled life. And the things that he was telling us are just really eye-opening and inspiring for how he handles his situations and the tragedies in his life. And this was the same way with all the Lakota people, who were the people we were helping in South Dakota. And the stories that they have were just truly incredible, the history of their people. And then that kind of brings me to the tradition that we were learning and the history of their people, and things that we think of as ancient history is still very fresh in their minds. And when they were telling us these stories, you could just see the pain and the hurt in their eyes and the emotion that would come out with that, which was really incredible to see. 200 years ago, things that were happening are still very fresh and emotionally driven in their minds. So listening to these stories firsthand, things you can't really learn in a classroom, were just incredible experiences that all the kids here, I think, will really learn from and go about their lives and just always remember. So Travis, as I said, had a very incredible life, all the tragedies, his life, what he does, and he actually had just got a job right on our last day. He told us as we got there he is going to work as a math teacher, which is what he really wanted to do for, I think, 5th grade at a school 9 miles away. So he was really excited about that, and just to see the joy in his eyes when he told us that was really incredible, because the things that they have are very limited and near nothing. So seeing the happiness in his eyes was just incredible. And then on the last day, as we were leaving, he told a couple of us he would just, every day as we would leave, he would just sit in in his house that we were building and just smile, because what we were doing was just helping him so much beyond anything that we could even like imagine. So hearing that and seeing that in his eyes and the smile on his face was priceless just to see, and something that I'll never forget. So as I said earlier, the culture we learned, so every day we had a culture aspect after our work sites, after we'd come home and shower, because it's 105 degrees every day. So we'd come back, and the first day we went and saw Wounded Knee, and there was a community member that would come and speak and tell us, and he told us how like real and impacted this still is for their lives, and how emotionally driven everyone is about this sort of thing. And then later on we went to a Lakota worship in White Clay, Nebraska, which is just a 20-30 minute drive from where we were staying, and we got to listen to some Lakota music and worship there, which was really incredible, because you can't really understand what that's like until you hear it firsthand. Like, you can hear the music and you're like, yeah, that's really cool, but seeing it and how emotional and how into it all of these people really were was something that is just incredible to see. And so that's what we were doing all week. We were really helping Travis build and creating connections with the community members, talking to them, hearing their stories, and really just learning about their culture and what we can do for the modern day Indian, which is not what you would expect and not what you kind of stereotype them as. And all the tragedies they go through from addiction and alcoholism and poverty is just through the roof there, and trying to help them any way we can is really incredible. And I think all the kids really learned from it and enjoyed the trip. So thank you.
I just want to thank Tristan, and I want to thank Mark Hansel, our other two leaders that went on the trip, and I want to thank our youth. As a youth leader, I'm an advocate for these kids. I couldn't be more proud of them. So thank you to our youth. They were rock stars. Really did a good job. We have a little something for Mark. Mark did all the driving for the whole trip. And so it was truly a godsend to me that he did that. It was a lifesaver. And Mark, for those of you that know Mark, you know he's got an incredible heart. So for Mark, we have this t-shirt, Live Generously, and Mark certainly does. And I just want to thank Mark. And one more quick thing, we have to thank Tristan. Tristan did a rock star job as our youth leader this summer. He really did a great job leading our youth out in Pine Ridge with his strength, with his humor, with his huge heart. So we want to thank Tristan, and I know he has an incredibly bright future in front of him. So thank you, Tristan.
You may be seated. As I was preparing for today a few weeks ago, looking at the readings, I noticed a common thread of hope for forgiveness, of repentance being strewn throughout, of reserving judgments not for ourselves, but for God at the ends of all things. And as I was looking at these readings, a story kept coming into my head, not one that I had written or anything, but the story of Jonah from the Old Testament. And so I thought it would be good today to tell the story of Jonah from the Old Testament as it is written. Now, you may have some inkling of the story from when you were a child, but I don't know how many of us have actually sat down and read it from front to back. It's not that long. Just so you know, it only takes about 7 minutes. But it's not that long of a story, but in it there's a lot of themes of forgiveness, of questions of who really are the faithful ones, of what does it mean to follow and worship God. So, just a little backstory before I go into it. Jonah was a prophet from the northern kingdom, back when the kingdoms of Israel had been split really into two, into the north, which continued to be called Israel, and the south, which was called Judah. And the story of Jonah really comes to us from the people of Judah after they had returned from exile. They began to tell the story and have it written down. And it's a story of Jonah, a prophet from the north, being called to a city in Assyria, which was their greatest enemy, which centuries after Jonah and centuries before the story was really being told the most, Assyria destroyed Israel. So this is their greatest enemy that Jonah is being sent to. And you may hear at the end some reasoning as to why he was a little reluctant at first, but I'll let you think about it for a little while. But for now, actually, before I begin, let me just say I'm just going to, when I'm done, just simply let it sit and end. I'm not going to give any more explanation. It has a really odd, abrupt ending, and we'll sit with it for a few moments before continuing with our hymn of the day. So this is the story of Jonah. So now the word of Yahweh came to Jonah, son of Amittai, saying, "Go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me." But Jonah set out to Tarshish to flee from the presence of Yahweh. He went down to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. He paid his fare and went on board to go with them to Tarshish, away from the presence of Yahweh. Now Yahweh hurled a mighty storm upon the sea, and such a great wind was upon the sea that the ship threatened to break up. The mariners grew afraid, and each of them cried to their own God. They took the cargo that was in the ship and hurled it into the sea to lighten it for them. Now Jonah had gone down into the hold of the ship and had laid down and fallen fast asleep. And the captain came to Jonah and said, "What are you doing asleep? Get up! Call to your God. Perhaps your God will spare us a thought so that we will not perish." Then the sailors said to themselves, "Let us cast lots so that we can see on whose account this calamity has come upon us." So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. And they said to him, "Tell us now, why has this evil come upon us? What is your occupation? Where have you come from? Of what country are you, and of what people?" And Jonah said, I am a Hebrew, and I fear Yahweh, the God of the heavens, who made the sea and the dry land." And the men became even more afraid, and they said to him, "What is this you have done?" For he had told them earlier that he was fleeing from the presence of Yahweh. Then they said to him, "Tell us, what should we do to you so that the sea may be quieted for us?" For the sea was growing more and more tempestuous. And Jonah said, "Pick me up and throw me into the sea, and the sea will be quieted for you, because I know that it is because of me that this calamity has come upon you." Nevertheless, the men rowed even harder to try to get back to land, but they could not do it, for the sea was growing more and more stormy against them. Then they prayed to God and said, "O Yahweh, do not make us perish on account of this man's life. Do not make us guilty of innocent blood, for you, O Yahweh, have done as it pleased you." Then they picked up Jonah and threw him into the sea. And immediately the sea stopped its raging. The men grew even more afraid. And they offered a sacrifice to Yahweh and made vows right there. But Yahweh provided a large fish that swallowed Jonah up. And he was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Jonah called to Yahweh his God from the belly of the fish, saying, "I called to Yahweh in my distress, and the Lord answered me. I prayed and I cried out from the belly of Sheol, and you heard my voice. You cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas. The floods surrounded me. All your waves and your billows passed over me. I said, I am turned away from your presence. How shall I look again upon your holy temple? The waters closed in over me. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped around my head at the root of the mountain, and I went down to the land whose bars closed upon me forever. Yet you, O Yahweh, brought my life up out of the pit. I called to Yahweh as my life was ebbing away, and I remembered Yahweh, and my prayer was heard in your holy temple. Those who worship vain idols forsake hid their true loyalty. But I, with a voice of thanksgiving, shall offer a sacrifice to Yahweh. What I have vowed, I will pray. Deliverance belongs to Yahweh. Then the Lord spoke to the fish, and it barfed Jonah up on the beach. Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time, saying, "Get up, go to Nineveh, and proclaim to it the word that I tell you." So Jonah went to Nineveh according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly large city, about a day's walk, or 3 days' walk across. And Jonah walked about a day's length into it, and cried out, 40 days more, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. And the people of Nineveh believed God. They proclaimed a fast, and everyone, great and small, put on sackcloth. Now when news of this reached the king of Nineveh, he stood up from his throne, removed his robes, wrapped himself in sackcloth, and sat in ashes. Then he had a decree made in Nineveh, by decree of the king and his nobles: no human being or animal, herd or flock, shall taste anything. They shall not feed, neither shall they drink. They shall cover themselves in sackcloth, humans and animals. They shall cry out mightily to God. They shall turn from their wickedness and the violence that is in their hands. Who knows? Perhaps God may relent and have a change of mind. God may turn from this fierce anger so that we will not perish. When God saw what they did, how they turned from their evil ways, God's mind was changed about the calamity that God had said would come upon them. And God did not do it. But this was very displeasing to Jonah, and he grew angry. He prayed to Yahweh and said, "Oh God, is this not what I said while I was still in my own country? That is why I fled to Tarshish in the first place, for I knew that you were a gracious God and merciful, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, ready to relent from punishing. And now, O Yahweh, take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live." And the Lord said, "Is it right for you to be angry?" Then Jonah went out of the city and sat down east of there. He made a booth for himself and sat there in its shade, waiting to see what would happen to Nineveh. Yahweh God appointed a bush and made it come up and cover Jonah to to give shade to his head, to save him from his discomfort. So, Jonah was very pleased with the bush. But on dawn the next day, God appointed a worm that came and attacked the bush so that it withered. God provided a sultry east wind and the sun came down and onto Jonah's head and beat down on him so that he grew faint and wanted to die. He said, "It is better for me to die than to live." And God said, "Is it right for you to be angry about the bush?" And Jonah said, "Yes, angry enough to die." And God said, "You are concerned about the bush, for which you did not labor, and which you did not grow. It came into being in a night, and perished in a night. And am I not to be concerned about Nineveh, that great city, in which there are more than 120,000 people who do not know their left hand from their right, and also many animals?